You're listening to an Anazao Ministries podcast.
How do you define a monster? It might seem black and white, but it may not be that clear cut. Welcome to Systematic Geekology. We are your priest to the geeks, those mediators between faith and fandom, the geek world and theology and philosophy. This is not a bait and switch. This is two people who love to geek out and also who take their faith seriously. And we like to explore the intersection of how they can work together. And today we have just a howling good time in front of you. With spoilers ahead, we are going to explore Disney Plus Marvel Cinematic Universe special presentation, Werewolf by Night. It is October. It is the spooky season, and Marvel threw out a special presentation about one of the classic monsters out there, oldest monsters that humans have ever thought of. And we're going to explore Werewolf by Night. So if you haven't watched it, we encourage you, go watch it and then come back and listen to us talk about the show, because we will indeed spoil it. I am Will Rose, one of your hosts here at Systematic Geekology. And what am I geeking out on right now? We're getting ready to have a conference at my church where theology and beer and it's going to be like camp stuff. And Joshua, who's talking with me today, is actually coming to it. And we're going to be in the same room, in the same physical space. And I can't believe I'm going to be like, what? I've seen him on screen for a long time, but then I'm going to be in his very presence. How about that, Joshua?
Yeah, obviously I'm excited for that. Guys, also, I'm Joshua Knoll, one of the co-hosts of the Whole Church podcast. One co-host here, produced both of those shows when they, claim me. And there's so much geeking out right now. I'm doing a lot of pirate stuff right now, reading a lot of different books, getting different shows and stuff, and just really going back to my piratey roots, because that's one of my biggest geekdoms. I just love pirate stuff. Weirdly enough, that, and DM us if you want to know more, but that has led me to today, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I created 15 books that are like a list of 15 books that have most made me who I am. As far as like
that's a good
things
list.
are, like the most impactful ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And a pirate book is the one that started that list. So Empire of Blue Water. It's a good book.
Is that a historical fiction book, or is it like a historical book about pirates? Or it
is a historical book that it's a story historical book though. Like it's just really well written, but it's the history of Captain Morgan.
Oh.
And a lot of his, for those who don't know, a lot of his, like what made him was because of religious quarrels and infighting in the church.
No, that never happens, Joshua. That never happens. What are you talking about?
Of course, the Church Unity guy is like, yeah, read a pirate book because it brings out what happened when we don't have Church Unity. Arg me, matey.
Right.
Yeah, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. We're getting closer to Halloween, and there's some friends of ours that throw just a great Halloween party on their block, and we got an invite today, and they said that it's pirate themed. So I'm going to have to dress up as a pirate. So
yeah, our friends did that last year. I always love it. I have oddly enough, I have an entire pirate outfit that I just am waiting. Any excuse I get. I couldn't find it today. Today at work was Crazy Hat Day, and I couldn't find my pirate hat, and I was very upset because it's a really good costume because it was made as part of a set for a friend's wedding that I got to officiate, which was super cool. They played the Jack Sparrow theme whenever I got behind the wheel of the ship for the ceremony. I was like, this is great.
Man,
it was fantastic.
Cosplay wedding. I love it. Well, y'all, before we hop into the meat of the episode, I just wanted to share that on our Priest to the Geeks Facebook page, I threw out a poll to our group, and I wanted to know what everyone's favorite classic universal monster was. So I put up Frankenstein and Dracula and the Mummy and the Werewolf, and then someone else added the Invisible Man. I forgot that was one. Our friend Brandon threw that up there. Oh, that's right. And then people put in a couple other things. Even I don't think he counts as a classic universal movie monster, but Mike Wachowski from Monsters Inc.
It's not even Universal.
Was thrown up there. But have you looked at those results, Joshua? Did you look at the results?
I did.
Okay.
I was upset not as many people clicked Bride of Frankenstein, given that was our drive-in movie last week.
Right.
But I would say the main character of that movie is still Frankenstein's monster, which I was positively, I felt pretty good about the results concerning him.
Yeah, so the results, Frankenstein won, and then
presumably because of that movie.
And then close second was the werewolf, and then everyone else. Thanks for playing. You got just a marginal vote, 7%, 3%, but the clear top two are Frankenstein and werewolf. I think my favorite Universal monster is the werewolf. So I was excited about this TV show and everything that goes into that. Yeah, Joshua.
Quick correction: the Universal movies are Wolfman.
Oh, Wolfman. See, there you go. Technical. Werewolf, Wolfman.
That's what nerds love, right?
That's
we got to be technically correct.
Yes. Hey, I totally get it. If somebody mispronounced something or misnamed something in Star Wars, I'd be like, wait a minute.
Wolfman was in a haunted house I went to at Universal Studios last month, actually, because I went opening night for Universal's Halloween Horror Nights.
Yeah.
And they had a house that was 3 monsters. It was the Mummy, Wolfman, and it wasn't Frankenstein, though. I'm blanking on what the third one was.
Was it the Invisible Man? Was it the Invisible Man? And so nobody showed up. It was just an empty room. They were like, the Invisible Man's in here.
Honestly, it was mostly the Mummy. Which I was kind of disappointed in because I wanted to kind of be 3. I think it was Dracula. Dracula was the other one.
Yeah.
It was Dracula, Wolfman, and the Mummy, but it was primarily the Mummy was the theme.
Yeah, and it's interesting because as I opened up the show with the question, what defines a monster, and you have the classic monsters that humans create in terms of this kind of genre of horror, but I think humans, as long as they've been able to question and ponder and think and project and think deeply about things, monsters or thinking of monsters or what could haunt us or be after us has always been out there. Whether it's kind of us evolved from being chased by literal monsters who want to eat us, or fictional ones that we dream up that go bump in the night and help us process the world and what really scares us, what's truly at the heart of what scares us or haunts us in our lives. But in terms of, before we get into the show and some of that things, what's some of your history with Werewolf by Night and kind of Marvel's rendition of the werewolf? There's a little history there that I'll talk about in a minute, but do you have any history with the character, the comic book?
Not really. No. I was aware that Moon Knight's first appearance was in a Werewolf by Night thing, but I just never got my hands on that, so I never really read it. The Bloodstone, however, has showed up in a few different of the comics that I read, kind of on the darker side of Marvel. It shows up quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, Elsa Bloodstone has been a part of the Marvel Universe as of recent publications and characters as well. Yeah, I wasn't that familiar. This show and this character is somewhat a deep cut of it within the Marvel Universe in its comics and its history. I think Moon Knight is very popular and it had its show, and so why not lean into Werewolf by Night? Because Moon Knight's first appearance was in Werewolf by Night issue number 32. And it makes sense that, you have this comic book about a werewolf and his connection to the moon and a full moon. And why not have a Batman-esque kind of character who named Moon Knight be a antithesis or kind of a rival to Werewolf by Night. So that's kind of that history. But before Marvel Comics were Marvel Comics, they were Atlas Comics, and they had in the 50s they had the monster and the horror genre, but then the Comics Code Authority came in and was kind of like, you can't let these kids see this crazy stuff anymore, and really the censorship of comics really hit hard during that time. But in the 70s, the Comics Code Authority kind of released part of its stranglehold on comics and kind of relaxed a little bit. And so in the 70s, Marvel Spotlight number 2 had Werewolf by Night. And then eventually it got its own series that ran for a while in the 70s. And it's always been out there. a little bit, but since Moon Knight, we just had this TV show about Moon Knight, and he's a very,
Mhm.
a popular character. Why not lean into a Marvel special presentation around Halloween with Werewolf by Night and have like they call it TV-14. It's not PG-13. It's a little bit gorier, a little bit more violent. We'll go up one more age. TV, if you're 13, you can't watch this, but if you're 14, you can. So I think that's what Disney is saying.
And it wasn't a lot of language, but
Yeah.
I think it was the gore factor that
Yeah,
kinda
yeah.
earned its rating.
The slitting of throats and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So
Were you disappointed that Moon Knight wasn't in it?
I think a little bit. But I understand. I mean, the Oscar Isaac is a big get, and he did his thing. Not sure if it's going to have another season or if he's going to go on and do more. He's a big price tag when it comes to spending and budget and those kinds of things. So I'm sure just an appearance or a cameo or a picture might do something. But even on the graphics on the walls, I didn't even notice if Moon Knight was on there or alluded. It would have been cool to have one of the monster hunters been alluding to a Moon Knight out there who hunts monsters. But that's
If they would have had like Khonshu on the walls, because it felt like very Egyptian kind of stuff on there. But I don't know. I'm glad he wasn't there in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this thing was it needed to be self-contained to accomplish what it accomplished. Yeah.
I agree. And I think it was, one of the parts I really loved is this kind of new opening intro to this new,
cool.
All these colors. It was really a throwback back when I was a kid that CBS had like a CBS special presentation. I think that's even what like the Star Wars holiday special came on, and the Narnia cartoon and other things. Like they had these special presentations that these networks would do, and then Disney leaning into that with these multicolored special presentations. It's a one-off. It's not a series. It's not a movie. It's a 50-some minute one shot of a character that they're going to snapshot. Maybe they'll show up later. Maybe they'll do another thing, but they're just doing a special presentation. And I thought it was super cool. Something new, they're different that was refreshing. And I think the audience and geeks are eating it up.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I loved it. I love that not only did they do that, but after that they went into the their usual Marvel thing, and you see the claws and it starts going black and white, and it's like horror version of the Marvel theme, and it's like, man, this is gonna, like, I knew from the get, I was like, this is about to be good.
Yeah, and so then they snapshot and just kind of said, yeah, here's the Avengers, here's the heroes, and then it got panned down like the underground world. If you're going in the underworld, there are other monsters. There's not just heroes, there's monsters, and then there's heroes who hunt the monsters, and here's what this story is going to be all about. And so that, and it just led you down a different path, underground, noir, black and white, gritty grindhouse kind of presentation, which I thought was really cool. So let's get into the show. Before I ask another big question there, let's get into the show itself. Like, what did you think? Did you like it? Did you love it? Did it do what you wanted it to do?
I'm glad it's a special, because if this was one of the shows, I would have to. It would be a struggle to say whether this or Falcon and Winter Soldier was the best MCU show. And nothing else is even a competitor in my mind.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then if this were one of the movies, I would struggle, because this is, honestly, it's a solid second to Winter Soldier for me. Like, I'm like, this is just one of the best things the MCU has put out, as far as I'm concerned.
So what I'm hearing you say is you like it, Joshua.
God, I love it. I think poetically, artistically, as far as like looking at it as film, as art, this is the most art that Marvel has done. I don't think anything else has the same kind of parallelism or poetry that, like, some of the stories do have that, but I don't think it's as well done.
Yeah.
My favorites are the Captain America stuff, which is all political thrillers. So you don't see that kind of thing at all in those, and you shouldn't. Mm-hmm. But in this, you see a very clear contrast. You see this parallel of one character who is a monster and is trying to deny that part of himself, and then another person who is a monster hunter and trying to deny her family history, coming together and seeing their story play out. And it's just like, oh, this is making us question life, making us see both sides of this. They do a really good job of letting there be the one color red in the Bloodstone. Everything else is black and white.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then you have the ending. It goes back to color, pulls Wizard of Oz, even plays the song from Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, yeah.
And which, ties back to some of the meanings that you get from that story. That's something the Bible does a lot of too. You'll see a phrase from a different book of the Bible that's supposed to make you think, oh yeah, the point of that book was this. That's what we're getting at here. Think of Revelation in the beginning. He talks about the lampstands, referencing Zechariah when it was talking about leadership and the importance of pouring that out. So you're seeing this leadership reference again in Revelation. You have the same thing here. They're referencing Wizard of Oz, which was a lot about, there's no place like home, going back to your origins, questioning what's out there kind of stuff. And then you see this for two people who are struggling with their origins, and it's like, oh. And they come together for this one event, and then it's like their real life is the fantasy. That's when it goes to color in this scenario. And that's what's really interesting.
Nice.
Everything about it is so cool. Even the small details, like if you're watching it, old films, especially like the old monster films, you'll see the cigarette burn in the top right corner where it just does that little black spot.
Yeah.
They do that to let you know the scene's changing. That's something for the directors, whatever. We don't need that anymore. And yet in this, they still did that. You knew the scene was changing because you saw those cigarette burns in the top right corner. And I was like, man, the attention to detail in this was absolutely wild.
Yeah, the creators of this show were like super big classic movie geeks, and really tied in all that kind of retro stuff. And I liked that retro feel to it and the nostalgia of that, the classic monsters. But like you said, there's some deep stuff there. Like you said, the werewolf, Jack Russell. Which is funny that his name is Jack Russell and he turns into a werewolf. But then he's trapped in a cage with Elsa Bloodstone. And you have one who's denying or has some deep history with her own family and their legacy of being monster hunters, and the one who is trying to hide that he is indeed a monster, has a monster within, and they're caged together, trying to work out how are we going to get out of the situation? Are we threatened? Are we scared? What's happening? And eventually, they both prevail. But them being out and about as part of the monster hunter crew, and then eventually caged together in one cage to really to get down on eye level with one another, to really talk about and explore who they really are deep inside was pretty meaningful. And then you can't keep a monster cage. And then that's when the slaughter happened and the winner. But yeah, like you said, it was
cool.
all,
that was a cool scene too.
All black and white except for the Bloodstone, which was brilliant. And then by the time you get to the end, I mean, let's talk about the monster they're actually hunting, Ted, or Man-Thing, who is another, deep cut in the Marvel universe, which is Marvel's version of Swamp Thing. DC has Swamp Thing, so Marvel has Man-Thing, and I don't know much of his history. I want to go back and read some of that, but the fact that like Jack and Ted are friends, and at the end, their friendship and them being safe is what brought color to the screen. Their friendship, their laughter, the smiles. It wasn't dark and gritty and threatening and who's going to hunt and kill who and who has the most kills and trying to one up one another and this hierarchy of who's the best monster hunter. They're sitting there relaxing in the meadow, safe with a smile, and that's what brings color to the screen, which I thought was pretty cool and meaningful.
Oh yeah, and then getting at that, and I know this is some of the deeper layer stuff. I actually could see where some of your classic horror fans might have a problem with this part, but I actually really liked they flipped the narrative. So if you look at your typical monster movies, the way it's formatted, you would expect this to have gone where that guy's really a monster and he's going to tear everybody apart. And then the monster is also a monster and everyone's going to be a monster basically. And you're going to see the monster in you compared to those monsters. And that's just how it goes. I mean, think Frankenstein, right? Everybody's like, oh, he's terrible, but he wouldn't have been terrible if they didn't attack him first. But because they did, he tears them apart. They try to kill him. Everyone's the monster. That's how it goes. But in this, you find out the monster they're hunting isn't really a monster. He's actually just a kind soul. Right. And the person who came in to get him, who's aware, is a wolf man. Oh no, he's a monster, but it turns out he's not really either. He finds the scent of somebody to try his best to not kill them when he flips, and he's trying to constrain that part of himself. And then you see the monster hunter. Surely she's going to be the one who's revealed to be the real monster, because we have to have something like that. Nope, it turns out she's also not the monster.
Yeah,
and it really turns out that sometimes we look for a monster so hard and there isn't one. And the monster of the story is just simply the fact that they wanted there to be a monster.
Yeah. Yeah. And the question is, what is it about humans, or what about this kind of genre of the monster within that that resonates with humans so much. Whether it's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the Hulk, Werewolf by Night, what is about this monster within that we try to contain that resonates with humans? Is it us projecting? Is it us wrestling with who we see ourselves to be and who we don't want to be? And then do we project on other people because it's easier to demean or look down on others if we see them as a monster? What is it about these monster stories that resonate so much with us humans and the stories we tell?
I think people often see the worst in themselves. And I think that people typically like characters, like heroes, where they see themselves. And, I feel like that's a lot of the draw with like Wolverine and Venom is they see a darkness into myself and I'm like that, but, I want to be on the good side. And that's where a lot of people relate to those characters because you feel like sometimes we even feel like we've gone too far for God to love us kind of deal. We feel like we're actually a bad guy, but maybe I'm a bad guy who isn't the worst bad guy. Maybe I'm the bad guy who's going to kill the other bad guys. And I feel like even if you don't put it into so many words, a lot of people relate to these kind of monsters because you feel something in you is like that.
Yeah. And I think, again, like this show being in black and white, we often see like villain or hero or monster or good guy in terms of black and white, but maybe it's just a spectrum of color. Like at the end of the show it's not so clear cut that it's just black and white, that I'm either good or bad, that I wrestle with both. You've heard me say over and over again that kind of there's this Lutheran theology of being both saint and sinner at the same time, but it's the work that Christ has done for us that God sees us as saint, and that we grow to be Christ-like and kind of strip away this kind of sinful nature and work hard to be who Christ calls us to be, all the while knowing that we're imperfect, all the while knowing that we're a sinner, all the while knowing that on our own we can't do on our own, and to see other people in that way too, to say like, not to see them as a sinner that I can condemn them, but also to say like they're not perfect, and so I'm going to be easy on them and know that they're loved anyway. So this whole thing about the monster, how do I see myself, how do I see others, all the while being transformed into who God is calling me to be. I think is an important part of the human journey, the hero's journey, the who we're called to be as people in the world.
Yeah, and with that, I might see things a little bit differently than Will. I'm not sure about this, so he might challenge me on this. We'll see. I also think that a lot of the time that Christ says that once we're saved, we are justified in faith. When Christ looks at me, he does not see my sin. He sees someone that he has paid with a price. He sees someone that he loves. I don't think he's looking at me going, oh, Josh, that's sinner. And to me, I think a lot of the times, I think people fall down the wrong path a little bit because I'm looking at myself seeing I'm still this monster. I'm still this. I'm still looking for the monster of the story. And I think somewhere in me is this monster. And sometimes we have yet to rectify, no, I've been bought with a price. I have been saved. I have been changed. Yes, I still sin. Yes, I do these bad things occasionally, but I am not that. Right. And sometimes we look for that in ourselves so much that we kind of become that. And sometimes we just need to realize maybe there's not a monster in the story.
Yeah, and it's easier to look in the mirror and see a monster. But as you're talking about getting into a little bit of the atonement theories and different versions of atonement theory, it's interesting in the show. We see the bloodstone, and it's the red that shines, that reveals the werewolf, but also
looks so cool.
Yeah, and then who's in charge of this? And sometimes we use, Christ's sacrifice almost as a weapon against others, when really, it's a call to grace. It's a call that no matter what you have done or been through, you are loved and cared for. So I think that part of Christology need to explore a little deeper. And what you're saying is not wrong. I'm not going to push back on that at all. But I think, this whole thing of like, again, black or white, either or, monster or not, like it's more complicated and nuanced than that. And within ourselves, that's why we do this thing of faith and community to hold each other accountable. But also, look what transformation happened in this show. It was his relationship with Elsa. It was his relationship with Mantha. How do the monster hunters view one another, as rivals or as friends? But more as rivals. But then when the friendship and the caged Elsa and Jack are there together and don't see themselves as rivals, that they work together for a greater good. I think there's something bigger when it comes to that.
Yeah. And I do think that someone else could do a critique of this and come away with not what I came away with there isn't a monster. They might see that the monster hunters were the monster, or Ulysses Grant or the lady that helped him. I do think that's also a possible interpretation. It's art. There's not a standard. This is the meaning of it. But even them, I'm thinking people who have dedicated their lives to killing monsters that are actually out there harming people. I don't think they're inherently wicked or inherently evil. You know what I mean? Like, I'm looking at this thing going, no, I'm just not sure there is a monster here.
Yeah. And then, at the beginning of the show, they start talking about their different kills, and they're up on the wall. You see these faces of kind of the trophies of these monsters. So cool. And it was cool. It's like, they look like they need to be taken out. We don't want to have a caged conversation with those monsters to come to a mutual understanding and agreement, but perhaps they needed to be taken out. But like, again, these stereotypes of looking at people as the rival, the monster. What does that mean in terms?
Yeah, and that's for the huge Marvel geeks that are paying attention to the Easter eggs and stuff. You get into a lot of interesting stuff even there, because you see some of these monsters and different stuff on the wall that you're like, oh my gosh, that's Gore the God Butcher is actually prominently featured in some of these, like the one from the comics.
Yeah.
So he looks a little bit different from the movie. So if you read the comics, you might notice him. If you just watched the movies, you might not have noticed him. But he's really prominent in some of these, and it's like, what is he doing here? Why is he part of this lore, right?
Yeah.
But he's a real monster. Sure, yeah, let's celebrate that he was defeated. And then you see elsewhere, Sasquatch wasn't part of these, and if you didn't know, Sasquatch is part of the Canada Avengers. So I'm like, nope. He shouldn't be on this list. But then you have the ancient version of vampires. I forget what they're called, but that's like some of Blade's baddest bad guys. Like the really old, cool, monster-looking vampires that are like still bat-like. And it's like, oh, no, that needed to be taken care of. And I'm like, there was so many. I'm like, no, that one was good. No, that one was bad. No, that one was really bad. And I'm going through going, wait a minute. I need to pause every like clip so I can evaluate which monsters that I'm like, okay, I'm glad you got that. Wish you didn't bother with that. And I'm just going through it. I'm like, man, there's so much just on the paintings on the walls and the things hung up. And I'm like, it was too much. It was too much for one scene. Again,
and that goes back to like, why wasn't Moon Knight in this or alluded to or Khonshu? Like, that would be distracting. You don't want to take people out of the story. I'm sure those who are creating the story, they want to draw people in and make you think of what's going on in this particular story. And the Easter eggs help illuminate the story you're trying to tell. But sometimes an Easter egg or a cameo from a character will immediately take you out of the story. And that's not what they're trying to do. They're trying to draw you deeper into the lore of this particular underground monster hunters, and that's what it's trying to do. So I thought at that point it was super good and very well done.
Which also brings up there's a nature nurture element of all this. I was talking about that parallel earlier. You see, why can't I remember the werewolf's name?
Oh, Jack Russell.
Jack. Okay, yeah. You see, Jack. He's coming through, and it's nature, right? He was born a werewolf. That makes him supposed to be this kind of monster kind of guy. And you find out that he ties himself up during the full moon. He does all this different stuff. He learned people's scent so he doesn't attack them. He's going way out of his way to defeat his nature so that he isn't the monster that everyone thinks he is. And then on the other side, Elsa Grant. Wow. Elsa.
You said Ulysses Grant. Bloodstone. So that's a different, different character altogether.
Yes. Elsa Bloodstone. Sorry, guys. I'm not all the way here today. But you see Elsa Bloodstone from this family of hunters, and she's like, I don't want to be a part of this. And she's denying her nurture, but she still comes up. She wants the Bloodstone for some other reason. Don't know what that reason is yet, still. Not fully. I don't know. I don't know if Will might have some theories. But you see these one person who's supposed to be evil because of their nature, another person who feels like she's evil because of how she was brought up, and they're both finding a way to deny that part of themselves. And I think that's actually a really powerful message for, it doesn't matter who you think you are born. If you think you are just the most evil person and it's in your DNA, it doesn't matter if you think you were brought up evil or something just went wrong in your past, traumatic, that you don't think you can overcome. I don't buy the Disney version of, oh, you can overcome anything if you just put your mind to it kind of thing. But I do think that there is a God who loves you, that you can choose to accept salvation. And you can choose, no matter who you are, no matter how you were brought up, to just enter into that kingdom life and live that way. And I just think it's powerful to think about those kind of things.
Yeah, I think it's important to know that, the decisions we make are important, but then there are some in terms of I'm a belief that God's yes is greater than my no, and that God's decision overrides mine. Yeah, there's freedom. Yeah, there's things, but we're being lured into that kind of love and grace of God, and it's through friendships, it's through community where we continue to become who we're called to be. And I do think that the grace and the good news of this, wherever you are in life, your story isn't over yet. There's more story to be told. And so, yeah, what if Elsa Bloodstone, she has that bloodstone. There's more story to be told. What is she going to do with that? What's next? What's the next turn for her? And where she shows up, I don't know. I mean, could she be, I hope they use her in a different team or show, or she's going to show up. Werewolf may show up again. Man-Thing may show up. Who knows what kind of team they're going to assemble next within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, whether it's Thunderbolts or Young Avengers or the next Avengers or whatever they're going to do. But I think wherever you are in life and faith, or how you see yourself, perceive yourself, or perceive others, your story is not over yet. So what's the next chapter look like? Yeah. And
I want the next chapter to be Blade, Moon Knight, Jack, Man-Thing, and Elsa Grant. Get those together. Make that
Elsa
a
Grant.
team.
Elsa Grant.
I'll watch it.
Elsa Grant.
Yeah. Elsa Bloodstone. Man, why do I want their last name to be Grant?
I don't know. Bad? You're all about Civil War today.
I don't know, guys. I don't know.
No. But I think you're right. There is like rumors out there of this thing, Midnight Suns, which is a kind of a team book
too.
Yeah, a team book. The comics are out there. There's sister there within the comics as well. But I just love these avenues that MCU is doing, that has the platform like Disney Plus and others to do special presentations and explore a character and see what happens, and then who knows, they might team up later on. But so for what it is, this one shot worked. It was great, and yeah, if you think it's just kind of a creepy horror Disney Marvel horror thing for just for 50 minutes, or look at how much it unpacks and helps us think about these things together.
And I think it's safe for the family. There's like one major curse word that I noticed, but I if you don't mind blood, especially, it's black and white blood, I feel like it's pretty safe.
Yeah.
If you let your kids watch Avenger movies, you can watch this. That's how I think.
Yeah. There's arrows to the head and severed limbs in a couple places, but even Star Wars, Star Wars has severed limbs, right? That story.
Yeah. Like I'm so impressed with this, and I have to say, if they let this just stand on its own and never do anything with it again, I'll be a little sad, because I liked all these characters, but also it was so well done that I don't think I could fault them for it either, to just let this be its own thing.
Yeah. I think it's gotten great reviews, and all the Rotten Tomatoes and all that are doing their thing and have it up there high on the list. So I'm sure if it's doing well, they're gonna build.
They'll do something again.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually don't have anything for Halloween that I like. I have to watch this every year. That's just It's not a thing for me. I love Bride of Frankenstein. I don't watch it every year. I have a couple things for Christmas that I do every year. I don't love Christmas, but there's a couple ones that I do every year. There's a Doctor Who special I watch every year for Christmas, and then Miracle on 34th Street. Then for Thanksgiving, I have a whole lineup of different shows and stuff that I watch for Thanksgiving. I love Thanksgiving, my favorite holiday.
Yeah.
There's movies I like for Halloween, nothing I have to watch every year. This might be the first thing that I'm like, I have to watch this. This is just, it was really well done. I can't gush about it enough. I just loved it a lot.
I did too, and I've watched it different pieces of the show a number of times to kind of explore whether it's the Easter eggs or the conversations that they're happening, and yeah, I think they hit it out of the park. And
and I mean, it's just it's really well done. It's like if you took some of these like Hunger Games kind of things, kind of those movies where you trap some people in and they have to like battle it out. You combine that with like some of those old Universal horror monsters, and you just throw in some of the MCU humor, but then you get a director who understands the art of filmography, and you just mix all that together, and you get 55 minutes of just pure masterpiece, and that's what this is.
Yeah, and I'm with you. Like, if this is all they do with this, cool. I hope they expand a little bit more, but I think the success will lend itself to like let's do more things like this. The Guardians of the Galaxy has a Christmas special, so I'm sure that same like intro of the special presentation with all the colors popping at you is going to be another version of that, and they'll do other things like that. So I'm excited. Good job.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm looking forward to more. And time for the wrap up.
Yeah.
Woo. Any recommendations, Joshua?
If you haven't seen Werewolf by
No,
listen, guys, this whole episode was a recommendation, but also if you liked Werewolf by Night and you haven't seen all the other MCU shows, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, the MCU the Phase 4 has been terrible. And then I ask them and they're like, well, no, I haven't seen Moon Knight. Watch Moon Knight. You should watch Moon Knight. It was good. It wasn't like the comics exactly, but it was good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a comic book recommendation from the like 2006, 2007, somewhere around there. There was a comic called Next Wave, Agents of Hate. And it was written by Warren Ellis and drawn by Stuart Immelman, who is both are like at the top of comic book creators in the world. And actually Elsa Bloodstone is on that team. And it's funny,
Nice.
It's good, the art's great, it's just well written, well done. So you can find that trade paperback somewhere, and you won't be disappointed as you read through that book. It's a great book.
You know what I think I'm going to do after this?
What's that?
I want to watch the show I just found. It's super cool. It's called Werewolf by Night.
There you go. And hey,
Watch it again. I loved it.
Go see if you can get Next Wave on your Comixology, and then bring it with you to Theology Beer Camp and read it on the way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have to drive, but yeah.
This was fun, and thanks y'all for listening. Just a reminder, hop over that poll we did on Priest to the Geeks was fun, and follow us there, follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and then if there's themes that we missed, Easter eggs that we missed that you want to share, let us know. And there's other themes that you think should be talked about and wrestled with, and let us know about that too. And
I will gladly watch this as many times as I have to see what you want to point out to me. So just come up with a scene, make up something, so I have to watch looking for it, then it's not there. It'll be great.
There you go. You're going to troll Joshua saying, oh, guess what I found? There was Moon Knight at this. And you're like, really? And then you watch it all the way through.
Yeah, perfect. I'm down, though. I'm down. Any excuse.
Yep. And then, of course, we invite you to follow us on Patreon and support us. Help us keep the lights on and go keep doing what we're doing. And we really appreciate all of y'all. And thanks for listening. Joshua, sound off.
This was a 10 out of 10 show. No, all right, guys. Hey, do me a favor. Remember to watch this show. And then remember that we're all a chosen people, a geekdom of Priest. This was an Anazao Ministries podcast. If you enjoyed this show and would like to learn more about our network, be sure to check out the Anazao Ministries podcast network.